Thank you so much for listening to episode number 10 of Into His Eyes podcast. Today, I think I'm going to call this or label this Service in Relationships. Not sure yet. As always, thank you. I appreciate your time and listening to this, whoever may be out there. I also want to let people know that I am not a counselor. I'm not licensed in any of this stuff as well. And the reason why I say that is I'm just a husband out there, a father to 4 amazing kids, trying to move through life the best that I can and learn and grow and just try to, in a way, if there's anybody else out there that can gain a little bit from the mistakes that I made or can benefit from the things that I learned, then that's what I want to do. I just want to share those things. But I just want to preface everything that, I'm not an expert in relationships at all. I'm not an expert in parenting, but I do read a ton, and I do hopefully let life experience teach me. Some people do that and some people don't. So I'm very, very open to learning. So what I wanted to talk about today, and the reason why I wanted to communicate this, is I had a wonderful conversation with an individual yesterday. I was a guest on his podcast, and we were talking about relationships. We were talking about marriage. We were talking about being parents. And we talked about the amazing opportunity or aspect of, for example, marriage, is that it teaches us how to better serve another individual. It teaches us how to better love. It helps us remove ourselves from that self-centeredness and begin to not only think about just ourselves, right? Because it's just us, but we have now another person, whether that's our spouse or whether that's our kids, that we need to serve and we need to focus on, and we need to sacrifice, service and sacrifice. And in a way, that teaches us to be more Christ-like, because when we talk about that and we understand that, like in Luke, he talks about, for the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve. We have that wonderful example about him Jesus washing his disciples' feet. That's humbleness. That's not being prideful, but that's serving another person out of love. And it's very interesting, and until we understand that, until we begin to practice that, not only do we rob that other person of that service, of that love, but I think more importantly, we rob ourselves of that growth towards understanding how to best serve and love another individual despite what we may be feeling. And when I say despite what we may be feeling, we all have kids, right? Or not, we all have kids. I shouldn't say that statement, but the few of us that do have kids out there that are had to raise kids up, a lot of times how they treat us, how they act is very, very much based on how they feel, right? If they don't feel good, then most of the time their attitude towards us is not that great, right? And that's for adults as well. But one of the things that I think we need to understand, and as I was thinking about this with my kids, and this came up today on the way to taking my daughter to school, is, we don't treat people or we don't serve them based on our feelings of how we feel, whether we feel good or bad or whatever at the moment. Because if we did that, if we treated people and we served people based on how we feel at the moment or how we felt at the moment, we'd probably treat them good about 50% of the time. That's not good stats. That's not good for the other person on the other end, and that's really not a good record for the individual. And I think that's incredibly important to discuss, because sometimes what we do is, when I notice that with the children, for example, that's a little bit of a sign of maturity, right? If you treat somebody based on how you feel inside or what's currently going on in your life, and you snap, or you do like kind of a woe is me, and you don't want to serve and you don't want to love, and you think that service, or you should love somebody when you feel like it, right? That's not that mature of thought. So we need to be aware of that. It takes a mature person to understand that I am called to love and serve this individual. I may not be feeling like it at the moment. There may be certain things that, I want to be angry or mad or upset, but it takes that mature person to show that love. And that also is where a lot of grace comes in, right? We need a ton of grace in marriage. And that's what we have in our relationship with Jesus Christ, with our Heavenly Father. He shows us so much grace. Imagine if he treated us in our relationship based on how we acted and what we did. Okay, that's not unconditional love, but he loves us unconditionally. Now, understand in all this, there's boundaries and there's certain things, right? And I'm not saying that in a relationship that you just serve and you allow the other person to do certain things that are hurtful, that don't feel right or are not right, and you just kind of humbly serve and don't have any boundaries. That's not what I'm saying. I would hope that you would understand that. But really, we need to understand that in our relationships, in our marriage, in the way that we parent, it really teaches us and gives us the opportunity to serve and to love another person and to move through the ups and downs of life, that life is incredibly challenging. It's incredibly hard. And I think a big trick of going through this, and I talked about this before, is how do we love well? How do we serve well when we're going through the hard times? Because the hard times are going to come. The hard times are there. Life is just hard. It's both beautiful but hard. There's a thing that we have that I have in there. It said that we got from like Hobby Lobby or something. It says, what does it say? I love it so much, but I want to say it right. Life is doesn't have to be perfect to be beautiful. And I think that's a great statement. And a lot of times how we make it beautiful is in service towards another person, right? That's how we can make it beautiful. Because what do we feel and what do we talked about, I'm not sure, is you feel better when you serve as opposed to being served. That's most of the time, or all the time, that's really the way that it goes. And another thought in regards to that is, if we are lucky to have kids, if we are lucky to be parents, and they are lucky to see and watch their parents love each other and serve each other, that's an incredible example for them in their future relationships. If they see a dad, if the boys, for example, see a dad that never serves his wife, that isn't kind, that isn't loving, that isn't, there for her mom, their mom, then it's going to be very hard for them, or they're going to go out and they're going to think that that's how they should be in marriage. That's going to be their example. So when they're in a marriage, they're not going to be able to love or to serve or to be there for their spouse that well. And the same thing in regards to a daughter. A daughter watches her mother and sees how her mother treats and loves and serves to their husband, right? So we have this wonderful opportunity in marriage to be an amazing example of love and service and Christlike and grace, to show grace. Grace is a big thing. I think grace is not talked about enough in marriage because none of us are perfect. I am unbelievably far from perfect. I always mess up. And if we treat somebody based on, well, did they do this right or they did that, so therefore I'm going to be mad and I'm going to treat them this way, that's not the that's conditional, right? And that's what we need to move away from. It doesn't mean that you don't say anything, but you communicate to the other individual, say, hey, when you did this, this really hurt, this didn't feel good to me, and then you have discussion. But it shouldn't be the kind of thing to where we treat somebody or love or serve somebody based on how we feel in the moment. We need to sacrifice and we need to serve because that's the right thing to do. And if you have two people in a marriage that have that attitude of service, despite what they may be feeling. What a wonderful blend, what a wonderful mix. And if kids are lucky enough to see that, that's what they're going to expect, or that's what they're going to strive for in their marriage. And that can just continue, that good base or that good example can continue on in their life. And then hopefully when they have kids, that'll just kind of move down the road towards a wonderful legacy that you have the opportunity to create in marriage. So hopefully that made sense. I'm going to end it today, guys, because I just need to end it before I say something that necessarily isn't right, because I'm not an expert. Just kind of sharing my thoughts and my ideas. So I appreciate you so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.